A few dollars. They poured somebody a cup of wine, and he said, I'm a Nazir from it. So usually, in order to accept Nazir, a person says, I am a Nazir, I'm any Nazir. Here he said, I'm a Nazir from it. So how do you take him? How do you take his words to mean? So
it might mean like I'm not going to drink that cup of wine.
If you just say, I'm not going to...
But he said Nazir.
Right. If you would just say, I'm not going to drink a cup of wine, or that it's also on me.
Mean from wine. So he's a Nazir.
So Tanakama says, I raise a Nazir. I mean, really, I said Tanakama. That's all it says so far. I raise a Nazir.
Right.
Doesn't say anybody argues. And even though he said me menu, he's saying, because I don't want it, so I'm a Nazir. He knows that he has to become a Nazir in order... He could have just answered the cup of wine. But he said...
He said, no, thank you.
But he knows himself.
Oh, yes.
So
he knows himself.
So he said, I'm a Nazir. But Mimenu doesn't just mean to do a neder and say, I'm asking it on myself. He meant to really become a Nazir. He was also for 30 days with all the halachas of Nazirus, Tamil Mason, haircut, everything. There was a woman who was drunk, and they poured her another cup while she was drunk, and she didn't want to drink it. And she said, I'm a Nazir from Vietnam, same case. I've been in Nazir minutes. What would we expect that the Mishnah should say? She's a Nazir. She just meant to say, I'm Nazir in the cup of wine. And it seems to be the opposite. The Mishnah as a kasha.
She was shikha.
Yeah, so is there a difference? Is that a difference? Is there a difference if she was shikha?
She didn't have her own wits about it.
No, so then it wouldn't have any validity. You have to say that she is, that the lach is that agav, when a person is drunk, he has his chayv in all the mitzvahs, and if he did in the ver, that's chayv malchus, it's chayv malchus, and the chayv misa is chayv misa, you can't say I was drunk. That's not enough of a excuse, because the person has enough das. It says only shachrus shalot, only if he became amish, like what you call dead drunk. So then he doesn't have any das at all. Otherwise, the regular, if he sells the Brooklyn Bridge, for $24, it's sold. So like so he has das.
So call tipsy or we're drunk.
But it's still.
But she knows
her words.
Know her name.
And she has that. She has. That's right. How would you say? She has responsibility for her words. And the Mishnah seems to contradict itself, except for what Levi Yaakov said, that here the case was that she was shikha, maybe it's different. So that's how the Gemara goes through it. The Marsikash and Maisa Listo is bringing a story which contradicts. Usually a story is to support. It doesn't say Allah, then it means that story the opposite. First it says that it's a Nazir, but then it says that the whole story, what's in the story, that she's also in this cup. Usually the Mishnah would just, she's only also in this cup of wine, but other wine she's mutter. It doesn't say that she's a Nazir. The end of the story said that the Chachamim said, which means that this cup of wine is also for her to drink. But she's not a Nazir. Usually the Gemara would have been much shorter, just would have said Maisa Lista. That's enough here. The Gemara gave us about 2 lines extra to explain the kasha.
Hare, who like Korban would do what to her?
That it makes that this cup of wine is also to her like Korban, which is a neder. She answered the cup of wine on her.
And if she didn't do that, then what? Then nothing. So it was nothing.
Again.
It says
she only meant to say that this is also on me like for with a neder.
Oh, I thought that was the law.
That's going to be the law, because that's what she meant. She only meant to answer herself, to answer the cup of wine on her like a korban, and that's what the law is.
Even though she said she's going to be a Nazir.
She said, I'm a Nazir from it.
And Nazir mimenu.
Which would have sounded like the ratio that we said.
We said she's a Nazir.
But the Chum said no, that she only meant to say that this cup of wine is also on me like a korban, and that's all it is, only that cup of wine, and that's the kasha. The ratio said that she should be a full Nazir, and the Sefer brings a story that
she's not a full Nazir, she's
Nazir.
only also on that wine.
Right, that's the kasha. The answer is something's missing in the Mishnah, you have to fill it in. You should read the Mishnah like this, which is what Levi Yaakov said, difference if there's a shikr or not. Most Galosa calls from Nazir, Mimenu, I raise a Nazir. That's what we have in our text, that if they poured a cup of wine and he said, I'm a Nazir from it, so he's a full-fledged Nazir. But V'em Shikar Hu B'Amareini Nazir Mimenu, same case, but he happened to be drunk, so then it has a different connotation. Eino Nazir, and he's just usher from that cup of wine. My timer, why is us from that cup of wine? Command like korban, who he just meant to say that it's also on me as a korban, which is a regular neder. So why did he say such a fancy lashon hareini Nazir? Let him say so. Why did he have to say I'm a Nazir from it? Savar, because he thought Ma'asen liyachrina or mitzvah only, that they're going to bring me, they're going to bother me to drink more. If I don't say I'm answering it, they'll bring me another cup of wine because they're encouraging the drunk to drink more. The Rosh says over here that people, I don't know if he means it. You can say learn it more differently, but it could be that a drunk person, it's easier for him to drink more. It's easier. He's in the drunk mode. But the Rosh also points out that people, they encourage the drunk to drink more.
Like if he said, I'm ushering this cup.
So they'll bring
I
another
said,
cup.
fine, yeah. Here's
Well,
this, you can master this cup. Come on.
Try the Merlot. You know? So
So he said, I'm a Nazir, it'll be.
right, I'll say, but it's not. It doesn't really make to make himself. He just wants to get them off his back.
Oh.
The psycho I'll say this issue that I'm a Nazir in order that I'll be across the board. Those are the psika, like it's
The end.
and then my Sanami Bishachas then bring a story to support that. Means the Mishnah meant to say that there's a different case when the person is drunk. So then, even though they said the same words, but the scenario shows us that he didn't mean to become a Nazir. There's a reason why he said Nazir over here because he wanted to get them off his back. All right, that's the difference between being a shikr and not being a shikr. That if he was not a shikr, so he says Nazir. Why say the word Nazir for? He wanted to ask only this cup, so only ask this cup. But by shikr, there's a reason why he said Nazir, and he didn't mean it. He meant only Nazir from this because he did want to say I'm a Nazir in order to get people off his back from pushing him to drink.
Mhm.
Or you could say a little different. Okay, here it says Mitzvah only people are going to bring me more. Or it means he knows himself a little different than the Gemara. That he knows himself that he's going to drink more. So he's saying to himself, I'm a Nazir, but he's fooling himself. He's telling himself I'm a Nazir, but he's really not a Nazir. Only meant this cup of wine.
So it really can't mean.
Right, so leave it more like the Gemara then. Okay, the Gemara is better. Okay, that's the first sugya. Pretty simple. That using the word Nazirus, on one hand, the word Mimenu sounds only this cup, but on the other hand, the word Nazir is a status. He made himself a status. So the Mishnah says that usually the word Nazir overrides the Mimenu, and it means that a Nazir completely. Because of this cup, I'm going to make myself a Nazir. But he meant himself a full-blown Nazir. But if he was a shikr, then there's a different reason why he might have said Nazir, to get people off his back from drinking more, and therefore he didn't mean it, and he's only usher from that cup of wine.
The point is that there can be the same language and it can mean two different things depending on the
Yeah,
situation.
very nice. Now goes the next Mishnah, which has three Mishnahs. Yellow and the green and the blue. Try to in the same one.
In the same mission.
And the Gemara is going to be comparing all these cases.
Okay.
The first case is Haveni Nazir Menashe Hey Shosei Yain. I'm making myself a Nazir on the condition that I'm going to drink wine. Or it says also Matam with Mason. You can put that in
Where
also
does
if
it
you
actually
want.
drink wine?
So a Nazir drinking wine. See, he seems that he wants to be a partial Nazir. He doesn't want to be a Nazir with a whole full flips. He wants to drink wine. Maybe he won't take a haircut. He'll only be a Nazir for not taking a haircut. But he doesn't want to be a Nazir for not drinking wine. Or Matam with Mason. I'm not sure if it's the case either or put it all together that he wants to drink wine and he wants to be Matam Mason, but he won't take a haircut. Or you could say that it's either this case or that case. That doesn't make a difference really.
Okay.
So, but he accepted upon himself a Nazirus with the condition that he shouldn't be chayv in all the halachas of Nazirus. So the din is a reza Nazir v'asa b'kov, and he's a full-fledged Nazir. Even though he made this condition which sounded like he did not accept upon himself not drinking wine, he should be able to drink wine. But no, he's a full-fledged Nazir who's also to drink wine. He has all the halachas of Nazirus on him. The Gemara, we had a Mishnah similar with the Gemara is which is probably the Pshat of the Mishnah. We can start. The first Pshat of the Mishnah is going to be what we had a while ago, Machlokas of Shuna and Rabbanan. If somebody accepted upon himself only Chatzanim and Zagim, only wine. He said, I'm a Nazir not to drink wine. Is he a Nazir or not? We had a Machlokas over there. Rabbanan say if you accepted one thing, you're a full-fledged Nazir. And the Bishimah said you're not a Nazir only if you accepted everything. And then what about Psukim over there? It didn't say as far as that's what Psukim. Is it a package deal? And you accepted upon yourself a little bit, you get the whole thing. Or if you didn't accept everything, you don't get anything. So this Mishnah we take superficially that it holds like the Rabbanan, that if you accepted upon yourself anything about Nazirus, even a haircut, you accepted about, so then you're a full-fledged Nazir. And maybe Rav Shimon will argue that's going to be the problem, that the Mishnah doesn't say that it's Machlokas, just us. And it sounds like that Mishnah before, that if a person said, I'm Masir in grape seeds, then he's Asir in everything. Because he accepted a little bit, it's a package deal. Here too, he did accept some kind of Nazirus. He's not allowed to take a haircut. So we'll say that it's a full-fledged Nazir. Case number 2. Yodea nishesh Nazirus, aval eni yodea shenazir asa b'yayin. He said, I'm a Nazir. But then he comes back and says that I didn't know that a Nazir is not allowed to drink wine. The first case was that he knew Nazir is not allowed to drink wine, but he said, I'm making it on condition that I should be able to drink wine. Second case is he comes back and says, I didn't know that a Nazir is not allowed to drink wine. I just thought that I'm not allowed to come with a mason, I'm not allowed to take a haircut. I didn't know this. So I raise the Aser, he's a full-fledged Nazir. Which sounds, you could say, the same thing as the first case, that he accepted upon himself something about Nazirus, and even though he didn't know the rest, but he's still a Nazir, like the Rabbanan say before, that if you just made a Nazir from Chatzanim, you're also in everything. Here too, he made a Nazir from the Mullah Mesim and taking a haircut, so he's also in the wine also. Rav Shimon Matir. Here, it sounds a little bit like we're on common ground already, because Rav Shimon over there said, there's no such thing as being Makabal in Nazirus only partially. So just like over there, he said, if he does said the Chatzanim, or he does said, I'm not going to drink wine, he's not a Nazir till he accepts everything. So Reb Shimon L'Shitasa would say that I'm not a Nazir. He's not a Nazir because he didn't know that he's accepting upon himself wine also. So that this middle case would fit with the mission before Machlokes of Shimon and Rabbanan if someone just said I'm Nazir from one thing. The third case, Yadei Anisha Nazir Asa B'Yayin, Aval Sabra Yisi Shechachamim Matirim Li Mipnei She'en Ani Yachal Lichiyas Ela B'Yayin. He's not already Nazir, but then he comes and says, I know that Nazir includes that you're not allowed to drink wine. But I thought that the Chachamim are going to permit me because I can't live without wine. Oh, I can't
live without wine.
I can't, I can't go without it. So he thought that he's going to get out of it. Oh, in the case where he was Makabel Nazirus, and he knows that a Nazir is not allowed to become Tamil Mason, but his job was a Chevra Kadisha. So he thought that the Chachamim will say, you could do it. You can
be a Nazir, and that can be an exception.
Right. See, that's what he thought. That is not true. There is no such thing as being a half a Nazir or the whole. Even the Machlokes before, Shimon and Rabbanan, was just, is it everything or nothing? But nobody said that he's a partial Nazir. So here the question is, what is he going to be over here? Now this is very surprising. Before it said, Areza Oser, Reb Shimon Matir. Here it says, Areza Mutter, Reb Shimon Oser. Superficially, you would have said it's the same kind of case. What's the difference if he says, I didn't know, or he thought he was going to get a heter? He only meant to accept upon himself one issue of Nazirus or two issues of Nazirus. And before we said that it depends on the Machlokes of Shimon and Rabbanan. If someone said, I'm going to asa myself from wine, is he asa everything or not? Or pits, or wine seeds, grape seeds. So before we said it makes sense that the Tanna Kamma says it's asa because it's a package deal. If you accept a little bit, everything goes on. Reb Shimon says you have to accept everything or nothing. It doesn't. It seems to accept everything, so nothing comes. And here we would have expected that it would have said the same machlokes, that he thought he's not going to have to abstain from wine. So Rabbanan will say that everything's asa. Reb Shimon will say everything is mutter. But the Mishnah surprisingly says the opposite. It says Reb mutter, Reb Shimon
and we're talking about on everything, not on the one thing.
L'chora, Reb Shimon, Tanna Kamma says he's not a Nazir. Reb Shimon says he's a Nazir.
Yeah.
And same thing before. Harei asa, that he's a full-fledged Nazir. Reb Shimon Matir is not a Nazir at all.
Mm-hmm.
So that seems to be the three cases. And there's a common denominator. All of them, we thought that he's going to be able to drink wine, either because on the condition I could drink wine, or I didn't know that I'm not allowed to drink, not allowed to drink wine, or I thought that I'm going to get a heter for drinking wine. And you could say that there's somebody that holds us in all three cases, Tanna Kamma, then Reb Shimon. But there are those that say mutter in the second two cases, and even it happens to be the opposite. They change the opinions. That's difficult. And in the ratio, there's no two opinions. It's only one sheet, also the Kulan. So we need to understand. We need help. So here comes the Gemara. So the first kasha is the little Nami of Shimon and Beresha. Maybe highlight that. That's the kasha. That the same way that Reb Shimon holds in the second case, we're not comparing yet the third case, but Reb Shimon. Second case, same way there's matter in the second case, you should have matter in the first case also. It's very similar. And the Gemara L'chora means what we know back from before, that this is Machlokes of Shimon and Rabbanan. If someone accepted upon himself only one thing, like wine or even grape seeds, that according to Rabbanan is also in everything, a full-fledged Nazir, according to Reb Shimon, nothing. So that's the most second case makes sense over here. And the first case should be the same thing. Why is the first case more reason to be Asa? So we have here two opinions. I'm Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Then we're going to have in the next line Ravina. You're right. He argues in the Reisha also. And when it says Reb Shimon Matir is going back on both. That's what he means to say. That I shouldn't put the two periods over here. I shouldn't put the two dots. It's Reb Shimon Matir in both cases. And it's the same machlokes that he accepted upon himself only one issue. He didn't accept upon himself the issue of wine, either because he made a t'nai or because he didn't know. And Reb Shimon says that if you didn't accept everything, so it's nothing. Ravina Amar Bereisha lo polag Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon agrees to the Reisha that it's also my timer. Mishum Tavalei Mas Tamash Kosa B'Torah. L'chol Mas Tamash Kosa B'Torah to know bottle. They made it tonight. The second case is he didn't know. So he only accepted upon himself what he knew. And that's the regular machlokas of Shimon and Rabbanan. If he accepted upon himself part of an Nazirus, does the whole thing go on or does nothing go on? The first case was he made it tonight. He knew everything in the first case, but he made a condition. And that's called Mas Tamash Kosa B'Torah. If somebody makes a condition, and something that the Torah obligates him. Like we had some cases back in Ksubas, I think, that if someone says, that I'm marrying you on the condition that I'm not responsible for support. So the Torah does obligate him for support. Over there might be different because Davar Sheva Momon, over there the other considerations, but anytime you make a condition, I'm gonna borrow money, whatever, on the condition that it shouldn't be it's a no halachas, the halachas of overcharging and things shouldn't apply. So you can't do that because maybe the Davar Sheva Momon again, maybe that's also a question about money. But just to take the call, here's not a monetary issue. So if you hold that a person cannot make a condition on what the Torah says, so the Torah is saying I'm a Nazir. If he wants to say I'm Nazir, that's accept upon himself, but I want to drink wine, so say so. But he made himself a Nazir. And Nazir has its what would you call it? Has its components. You want to be a Nazir that has certain components. You can't say I'm a Nazir different than the Torah says, because the Torah says what a Nazir is. That's Mashikosa B'Torah, and therefore everyone will hold that the condition is invalid, and therefore whatever he said he's a Nazir, he's a Nazir, and he can't make conditions on what the Torah says. The second case, he didn't make conditions. Second case, he says that I accepted a certain aspect of it that wasn't called making a condition. That's how Ravina wants to reconcile the Reisha with Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon could agree that in that case, in the first case he wants to reconcile with Reb Shimon, that Reb Shimon will agree. Again, Ravina Amar Bereisha lo palag Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon doesn't argue in the Reisha, and he holds that it's also when he made a condition. My time because he's master mashkas of the Torah. If anybody makes a condition, a stipulation on what the Torah says, so then the stipulation is void. Then whatever he accepted upon himself has validity. Mm-hmm. Now the Gemara wants to know why does Rabbi Shimon Levi argue on that? Isn't that known that a master mashkas of the Torah is to know bato? Rabbi Shimon Levi Amalach. Rabbi Shimon Levi will answer. He's the one who argued. He's the one who said that there's no difference the first and second case, and Rabbi Shimon will argue also on the Reisha. Why does he not agree that it's a master mashkas of the Torah? Rabbi Shimon Levi Amalach Hay Almanas Kechutz Dami. That even though it says Almanas, which means on the condition, it could mean sometimes it means besides, means it's not a condition. If you say Almanas means I'm saying plus means besides, right? With the exception of. So if he says I'm a Nazir with the exception, so then it's not called the Master Mashkas of the Torah. Master Mashkas of the Torah means Areni Nazir with certain conditions. That you can't do. But if he's saying that I'm Nazir with certain exceptions, so then that's another way of saying that he didn't accept upon it on himself. He didn't accept upon himself the regular Nazirus. The first way of saying I'm a Nazir, the Pashup Shot means that I'm Areni Nazir, right, and I'm making my conditions. But if he says with the exception, so then it's not the same thing as saying Amanas, and maybe everybody, and then it wouldn't be this din of Tano Bato, then it's a regular machlokas of Shimon and Rabbanan. If he accepted part, does it go on everything or nothing?
Well, the fact that he said with an exception means that he's going to be matir.
That means that it's not, that doesn't go under the category called Masna Mashkas of Torah. It's not that, it doesn't go under that category, which will be that the condition is void and Maisa Kaya, whatever he said.
Yeah.
So now it's a regular case of just accepting part of the Nazirus. To be such, he accepted on himself part of the Nazirus. It's not an acceptance with a stipulation. It's not accepting something with a stipulation. It's saying I'm accepting part. That's different. The reason why Ravina said that everybody agrees in the first case that he's usher is because it's considered a condition, and a condition with a stipulation against the Torah doesn't take effect. There's no stipulation. So you erase the stipulation.
Doesn't the Nazir have conditions that are in the Torah?
The word conditions maybe is a confusing word. If you're talking about
somebody said a Nazir is something that's derisive, right?
Right, and he said
there are
Nazir.
certain things that are going to be forbidden when somebody's a Nazir.
Right, and now he said he's making Armeni Nazir, and he made stipulations. That's the case of Almanas. And Ravina says you can't make stipulations on a Torah law.
Right.
And that's the reason why everybody will
That
agree
part's- I
that the
understand.
stipulation is off and he remains us.
Rabbi
But
Yeshua ben Levi,
Shimon is saying that if you take these words Amanas and instead of saying Amanas, you say Chutz.
Chutz.
So he's saying I'm a Nazir with the exception of wine. That's his way of saying he's not saying he's not accepting upon himself a full Nazirus. He accepted himself the certain parts of Nazirus. It's not called accepting Nazirus for the stipulation. He's accepting on himself certain aspects of Nazirus. And that goes back to the old machlokas. If you do that, does it take effect on everything or does it not take effect at all? But it's not called making a stipulation on the Torah.
I see. Kind of what's on. Okay.
Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Amalacha, Amanas kichutz dami. So therefore, he thinks that it would be the regular machlokas between Rabbi Tanakama and Rabbi Shimon. The rest of the Gemara is going to be a brayso that says openly, like Ravina, that the first case is Masa Mashkas of the Torah, and therefore makes sense. Everybody should agree, and that's what the Gemara is going to bring a brayso. Tani Kavasa the Ravina that says that the first case is yes called Amanas. Don't make it into a chutz. It's Amanas. It's making a stipulation, and the stipulation is all. So far, it's word for word the Mishnah, the first case, but the Brisa continues with to know about it. So it's word for word what Ravina said, that the first case is a stipulation on the Torah and it doesn't take effect. And according to that, Reb Shimon also could agree. It doesn't say in the Brisa that Reb Shimon agrees, but once you have that, that's the reason. So then Reb Shimon would agree. Rabbi Shua ben Levi just said it's not the case. It's not the case of being a stipulation mas mashkas of the Torah. It's a chutz. But the Brisa says not like that. So we proved Ravina is right. So now we go back to the Mishnah. The first case of the Mishnah, the reason why everybody holds that it's a full-fledged Nazir is because mas mashkas of the Torah. Now the Gemara jumps to the third case. We're really waiting for the second case. But
So,
that,
excuse me.
yes.
So we shot Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi
Yeshua ben Levi,
Yehoshua ben Levi down.
he's down, right? He's
Okay.
down. Right. Now the Gemara skips the second case, and it seems simple to partial to the Gemara that the second case of Pshat is like we said once upon a time, that if someone accepts upon himself to be Yasser from the grape seeds, so machlokas if he's Yasser and everything or not, and according to the Tanakh Chachamim, he's a full-fledged Nazir. According to Rabbi Shimon, since he didn't accept everything, so it's nothing. And that the Gemara doesn't have to explain. The second case we understand, there's a machlokas Tanakh of Rabbi Shimon. But the kasha is going to be that this third case is the exact opposite, that over there, Rabbi Shimon Osa, the third case, for some reason, is switched around. That's the most kasha on the bottom. Then Yishanosa also behind, so it's going to the third case. We're jumping to the third case now. The Gemara doesn't talk about the second case. Amid Reisha also Rabbi Shimon Mati. In the second case, where he said he didn't know that wine is included, so he says over there, Tanakama says also, Rabbi Shimon says mutter, and here it's the opposite. That was the kasha. Take that into a kasha. So you're gonna have three terutzim over here. The first teretz is change the gersa. Ema nami areza asa Reb Shimon Mati. That's the first teretz. Change the gersa. That the second and third case should say the same thing, and it's the same machlok. It's no difference if he said, "I didn't know that a nazir is included," or "I thought that the rabbanan are going to give me a heter." It's all both the same thing, and it means that he accepted upon himself only part of the nazirus, only as far as not taking a haircut, the tamil mason, and the rabbanan say that makes you a full-fledged nazir. In both cases, change the gears in these words. I raise usher, Reb Shimon Mati, because Reb Shimon holds that if you didn't accept everything, you're nothing. So if you change the gears, the second and third case are the exact same thing. Ibo Yisema, Lolom Lo Seipach. Another teretz, if you want, I could say, don't change the gears, and I'll tell you a difference. Hasam, Amad Beis, Reisha Kigon the Nazir Mechada.
Low
Seipach. Don't
low
switch it
seipach,
around.
period.
Right.
Over there,
Don't Hasam over there, I mean, Reisha. Let me explain. Over there, where's there? The Reisha. Kigon the Nazir Mechada. The ratio over here is going to be the second case. There's a ratio in the safe. It's the second case and the third case.
ratio here means second case.
It means ratio. With the first case we finished with already.
Okay.
Now we're talking about the second and the third, and that was a contradiction. Reb Shimon, the Rabbanan Aser, and Reb Shimon Matir, and then the opposite. That's Rabbanan Matir, Reb Shimon Aser. What for? The first case is Nazir Mechada.
The second case was I didn't know.
Right.
Yeah.
So that case we understand. The Rabbanan, the Amri, the Filu La Nazir Elam Achas Mehen. Having Nazir v'Aser, and Reb Shimon, Damar Achi Azim Yikulam, Mutter. This thing more explains now the second case that we knew the whole time, that he made himself a Nazir from one thing, only haircut, let's say, whatever it was, one of the three. And the Rabbanan say that if you made a Nazir from one of the three things, so then he's a Nazir from everything, and therefore he's a full-fledged Nazir. And Rav Shimon over there said, Rav Shimon Damar Shazar Mikulam, then he's mutter. Where is this, by the way? Daf Beis. I don't look it up. This is Daf Gimel Amud Beis. Okay, that's where we had it. This machlokes between Rav Shimon and Rabbanan. So that we know already. We have machlokes of Shimon and Rabbanan. If he accepted it upon himself, part of a Nazir is he a full-fledged Nazir, is he or nothing? So the second case makes sense. So now the question was the third case. That's what we're talking about. The blue case. Seifa the nadami kulu be'itshel mechada. This thing that I thought the Rabbanan are going to be matir me, you have to explain that he's not just saying I thought the Rabbanan are going to be matir. He's coming to be matir neder. He's coming to be matir Nazir. It's a little bit stretched on the words. It isn't that he comes and says I thought the Rabbanan are going to be matir. I thought the Rabbanan are going to be matir. When he said go back to the Mishnah, it sounds.
Was asking, right?
What?
Ask
Ishel means asking means to be shown on the Nazirus, means to be tracked. He wants to be tracked. He wants to be tracked in the Nazirus, but a Taurus in the Dom, he has a Taurus in Nazirus. He wants to come and say, I can't take it. Which is, we understand. The person comes and says, I thought I'd be able to take it. I can't take it. So that's called Taurus Nazirus, and we know of such a thing. And the Gemara is being a little bit dochak over here because the words don't sound like that. It says, I know that a Nazir is Aser, but I thought that the Rabbanan are going to be Mati because when did he think? We're not talking about when he thought B'shas the Neder. The Pashut word sound, when I made the Neder, I thought I'm going to get a heter for this one, for this part.
Be able to ask.
That the Chachamim are going to.
They will agree that I don't have to do this.
Right. So that's what the question of the words.
Case.
Right. The words sound like that's what he thought. He says, when I made the Neder, I thought that they're going to allow me to drink. But now that's not the Gemara's not learning like that. The Gemara's learning that he made himself a Neder. Now he's coming afterwards to be shoel on the Nazirus, to get ahead, to be mate Nazirus. And he says, I can't take it. And now what? So he wants to be shoel. So when a person is shoel on the Nazirus, he comes and says, I'm a Nazir, but I didn't realize how hard it is. So they ask him, what's so hard? So he says, I can't go without wine. How about not going to funerals? How do you find that? That's okay. And how about having long hair? That's fine. That's fine. So they say, oh, you don't have charat on all three things. You don't say that all three things are too hard for you. You only have difficulty with one of them. So the Gemara's going to make a machlokas out of that. That when you're being shoel on the Nazirus, you have to be shoel on all three aspects of the Nazirus, or it's enough to be shoel on one. And if you hold that all three, then you're not going to get any heter unless you get all three. If you don't have difficulty, if he's going to be part of the Chevra Kadisha, and also he drinks, and also what's the reason he has to have a short haircut? If there are going to be reasons for all three that he can't tolerate it, so then we'll give him a Taurus Nazirus. But it just comes with one problem, that's not enough. It must make him a
Michada means one on one thing.
Right.
And that's what it was in the second case too.
And the second case, he was coming to answer himself on one. In the third case, he's coming to be mater with one. And the Reisha, top line, Reisha could go to Nazir Mechada. The Reisha's case was that he made Nazir from one thing, from not taking a haircut, let's say. So the Rabbanan say that even one thing makes you a Nazir. That's why it's Aser.
Right.
And Rabbi Shimon, and Av Gimel, so he's muter. Fine, that we understood. Seifa is the opposite. The Nadar Mikulu, that he made himself a full Nazir, and now he's coming to be shown on one of them, that he can't take without wine, or he can't take without going to the mason.
Yeah.
The abundant, and the one makes it, the one makes it not just that it happens to be a machlokes, the opposite. It's interdependent. There's a word for it, that is the opposite. That he holds here, the abundant said that when you accept one part of a Nazir, which you become a full-fledged Nazir, they're going to say that when you matir one part, you take everything off. For some reason, the Gemara makes it interdependent. So then by Sheila, it's also going to be with one. The same way you can become a full Nazir by being makabel on one of the three things. So you can be shown on the whole Nazirus by being shoel on one of the three things. So if you do Sheila on one of them, that's the way to be matir the whole Nazirus, because you can't take wine, so we'll take the whole Nazirus off. But the Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Shimon says that in order to become a Nazir, you only become a Nazir if you accept all three things, all three of them. So Ki Mitchell Nami, Yahu ad the Mitchell Nikolu. So when you're coming to be Shoel, it's not considered a Sheila until you are Shoel on all three of them. I don't understand the interdependence so much.
I thought that's kind of a problem for Rabbi Shimon.
Why?
I don't know that when he goes to the Chachamim, they're not going to ask on everything. He's going to say you have to ask on everything.
On Nazirus. What's your case? Nazirus case?
It's too hard for me. I want to get out of this.
Which thing? What was the story? Yeah. The case of the Nazirus.
I'm saying if somebody, a Nazir goes and wants to get out of his
Right, this is
Nazirus,
not much machlokas. According to this pshat in the Gemara,
Rabbi Shimon is saying that when they ask him,
They can ask
what's
him-
too hard, they have to go through everything.
three things.
All three things, shaving.
Right, and
growing the
drinking,
hair,
uh,
not being tamei,
Right,
not drinking wine.
right, three things.
That's all.
We
Yeah.
know.
Okay,
Okay, up until now, we're on Yodala. Right until now, I always thought it meant,
well, we didn't,
Shoel meant, it's too hard for me. and so then this-
well, we didn't go into the details. We didn't talk about
No.
even so much being shown on the zeros. Came up once in a while. We didn't
Yeah.
really have a sugi about it. And here it is interesting that it comes in the middle here because we're not talking about it comes in the middle of no place.
Uh-huh.
There's waiting to be shown on it. But the Gemara is making it, the reason why it comes in is because it's interdependent. I don't understand the svara of this interdependency. If in order to accept the zeros, one thing brings on the whole package. So by leaving, by getting out of it, being shown on one aspect is going to get you out of the whole thing. According to Rav Shimon, you only get in if you accept all three things. So then in order to be shown, you have to be shown on all three things. And according to Rav Shimon, as you're saying, that when he comes to Bimat and Naziros, we ask him, how's the wine and how's the Tamei Mason, how's the haircut? And according to Rabbanan, he asks, and any one of the three will get him off of the whole Naziros. He says the haircut is too difficult. That's also going to be a reason to be matir. But it comes out a huge chiddush. I mean, the wording that the Mishnah is talking about being matir. It doesn't sound like that. It says sabra yisi. That's not sabra. You never say when you're talking about shoal on Nazir. You don't come back. I thought
What, in
when
the
someone
Mishnah, Sabir,
the sabra yisi in the Mishnah, the words is very dochak.
Sabir Ha'is.
I thought that's not what you come when you come to matir nether. I thought that I'll get a heter. You come and you say I made a full nether, and now I see I can't take it. I can't tolerate it. Could you be matir for me? I didn't mean it under these conditions.
But here he thought, because he's.
Here he's coming to tell you. I thought b'shas ma'at, when I made the naziros, I thought I'm going to get a heter.
Because of course I have to drink wine.
But that's not really what the words say. It should have said someone became a nazir. Now he comes to be shoel. So how much does he have to be mitcharet on?
Uh-huh.
So the words are a bit stretched over here, and the Gemara makes a new machlokus and it comes out the opposite. That's why the third case is going to be the opposite. Tanakama says mutter, because if you're shoel on one of the three, everything goes off. Reb Shimon also, you don't get a heter in the zero, it's only if you show on all three things. And it's going to
Shimon Oser, and that's the end of that.
Reb Shimon also, right? And that was the second teretz. So now goes the third teretz. This is even a harder teretz.
We had two terraces.
Yeah, the first teretz was change the gears. So we go back to Amalaf.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I raised us aim right. Second teretz was I didn't even highlight it. I have to highlight the second teretz. That here it's talking about being shoel.
Emanami is the second.
Ibois, where are you? Number Aleph? Number Aleph?
Yeah.
On Number Aleph, over there was
There's an Ibois Sema, but
right.
Ibois Sema is the
Ibois
second.
Sema is the second teretz. And I would just highlight over there which ones. Seifa the Nodem Ikulu, the Ichel Mechad.
The first terrace was Rabbi Yoshu. No, I'm sorry.
The first teretz, there's no names. There are no names over here. The first teretz is Ema Nami Hareza Aser Rav Shimon Mati. Change the gersa. That's the first teretz.
Emanami Hareza Aser.
Rav Shimon Mati.
Right at the bottom of the page, right before the.
One line up, right?
Yeah, okay.
So change the first teretz is change the gersa, opposite. And the second teretz says don't change the gersa, but the seifa is because it's being shoel. It's shel mechada. And the third teretz now is going to be Iboy Sema. The third teretz, the nidrei onsin kamiflagi. They're talking about nidrei onsin. So it's going to bring now. Nidrei onsin goes back to Nidorim. Over there was a parak about nidrei onsin, nidrei shogigim, nidrei zuzin, and what it means the Mishnah right away. Ubeflifta the Shmuel Rav Asi. The Gemara is going to make the machlokus between the Chachamim and Rav Shimon in the third case. Boils down to machlokus Amram we had in Nidorim. The Tanan Abon Nidorim Hitiyu Chachamim. There are four Nidorim that the Chachamim, or that the sages permitted, that it doesn't have the koach of a neder. It's not a neder. They are nidrei zuzin, nidrei avoy, nidrei shgogos, and nidrei onsin. Here, the Gemara doesn't explain what all these things are. Nidrei zuzin was that on the market, or the Gemara talks about even maybe neighbors also, that they're negotiating. So one of them says, I'm not going to sell it for a shekel less, and the other one, and I make a neder, whatever. And the other one says, I'm not going to pay a shekel more. And then everyone means just to negotiate. They mean to come to a compromise.
That's the reason.
That's the reason, right? And Nidra Havai means that he's exaggerating. He says something that's surely an exaggeration. Nidra Gogos means that he made himself a yasser on a certain condition, and he forgot the condition. And when it was a mistake, he did. he said, I'm gonna be usher on something if I go to a certain place. And he went to a certain place without realizing that that's going to make him usher. He made a mistake in the way that he made the neder. When he made the neder, he made a mistake and it came to be an acceptance upon it. Or nidre onsin, that he was forced into it. What does it mean? That he made a neder, if I don't come, I'll something. And then he wasn't able to come. It was an onus, he wasn't able to come. Whatever the case is, there are 4 nedarim over there that the Chacham said it's mutter. What does that have to do with us? So there's a machlokes over there that even though it says for our purposes, all we need is that it says over there that for nedarim that the Chazal said Chachamim there means Chazal. Chazal means the sages. It doesn't mean Chachamim of somebody specific. The sages permitted for nedarim even though we made a neder. It doesn't have what's the word? It doesn't take effect. But over there, even though Tiru Chachamim, there's a machlokes if you have to be matan neder. Ravasi said, you have to be matan neder, even though they permitted it, but you have to be matan neder. Like with Rabbanan, you have to be matan neder, even though really it's not a good neder. That doesn't have a fish, it doesn't take effect, but you have to be matan neder. And Shmuel says, it doesn't say that. It says Tiru Chachamim, you can't say that you have to have Hataras Nedarim. So we found machlokes over there that even though the neder does not, we're going to be matter in neder, but maybe sometimes you don't even need a Taras Nedarim. Shmuel says you don't need a Taras Nedarim. It's mutter. These 4 nedarim don't need a Taras Nedarim at all. Ravasi said you do have to do a Taras Nedarim, but we'll accept it a Taras Nedarim. Rabbanan Sabi Kishmuel, Rabbi Shimon Sabak Ravasi. So Gemara is making an amachlokus in our Mishnah between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbanan when he says I can't live without wine, or I'm a Chevra Kadisha man, I can't go without going to the basic forest. So it says the Chacham say Aser, and Rabbi Shimon says mutter. The Gemara is sticking into that. Amaron, it just means they have to be matan neder or not. Chachamim say aser means that it's also without a Taras Nedarim. They hold like Shmuel that you have to be matan. Rabbanan Sabri Kishmuel, and what does it say over there? Mutter. Mutter means without being matan neder. And Rabbi Shimon says aser. Rabbi Shimon means to say you have to be matan neder. Everyone holds that you can be shoel. You're being shoel. You come. No, I'm sorry. He says it's an onus. Onus here. There's a difficult teretz also. Here the Gemara is saying that this case of that I can't drink wine, I can't go without drinking wine. It's called like nidri onsen, and therefore you have to have a Taras Nedarim. For sure, it's going to be a lot of take off the naziros, but you have to be matan neder or not. You have to be matan naziros. Rabbi Shimon says you have to be matan naziros, and we'll be matan for you. And the Tanna Kama says, "I raise a mutter." You don't even have to be matan neder because it's an onus. The fact that he can't go without wine, it's an onus, and you don't have to even be matan neder.
What did Shmuel say?
Rav Yehuda Shmuel said that even though over there it says the Afon Nedarim that Chazal will matter, you still have to be matan neder. They will matter you to be matan neder, but you have to be matan neder. You could say you come to the Rabbanim and you say that this is too hard.
So it has nothing to do with if it's 1 or 2.
1 or 2?
1 or all.
Oh yeah, this is a noob shot, nothing to do with that. Noob shot, third shot. Ibai same, we're in the third shot now.
Yeah.
No, yeah, you're right. According to this, Mamish makes it over there. That's over there in the dorm. Again, over there in the dorm, there's a Mishnah.
It said, Rav Yehuda said, Shmuel said to me, isn't that what it said? I went in front of Shmuel, Amarli.
Shmuel said to me that Ravasi is wrong. Ravasi said, first I've viewed the first bar was by Ravasi, then he went to Shmuel. His Rebbe Ravasi told him that even though it says in the Mishnah and the Dorim that 4 Nedarim are mutter, let's just highlight the Mishnah. But you also
say that you have to ask, you have to get a shade on.
That's what Ravasi said.
Yeah, okay.
And Shmuel said,
Shmuel said to
Rabbi Yehuda that Ravasi made a mistake. The Tana says it's mutter, and you're saying that you have to have shade of Chachamim. You have to do the word mutter. Here it says Arba Nedarim Itiru Chachamim. Right.
Because it said Itiru Chachamim without asking.
Right. To say Itiru Chachamim means that you could do a Taras Nedarim. It doesn't sound like that. It means that it's mutter. So this word Itiru, Shmuel said Ravasi is wrong. But anyway, it's Machlokes Amaram, Shmuel and Ravasi, both of them have a valid opinion. If over here, Nidre Onsen, the Gemara is pointing at, Nidre Onsen, so you have to have a Taras Nedarim for that. Or it's mutter. If it was an onus, that's mutter. So even though our Mishnah is going to be an onus because you can't go without wine, you can't go without going to the basic forest, so we're going to say it's okay. But does you have to go to the Rav to be matan neder or not? So Rabbi Shimon said you have to be you have to go to be matan neder. That's called aser. It's also without being matan neder.
Wow.
And the Chachamim said it's mutter. They can have to be matan neder even. The difficulty is that this is not called nidre onsen. Nidri Onsen over there means that a person said, here, whatever he said, I'm going to be also in wine if I don't come within 30 days. And it came back, he wanted to come back within 30 days. And then he was stuck by the plane, the corona, they stopped the planes, he couldn't come back. So that's called that there's the net to take effect. Because the condition was fulfilled by onus.
Yeah, that's not the same as.
It's not the case here that I can't drink, that he made a net, I'm asking on the bread. They said I can't go without bread. That's not called Nidri Onsen. It doesn't fit into the klal over there. It's very difficult. That surely has to have a Torah. That's a regular Torah. So I don't understand this. I don't understand that either. I don't understand this Gemara.
So when it says eat boys ema, the more that there are, isn't each one weaker?
You're saying, I also thought so. He wasn't usually like that.
Rabbi Green, you're like, oh, you could say this or this. It sounds like you're making it even stronger, but he said, really, you're making it weaker.
I don't know.
Because each one is not.
I wouldn't take that as a cloud, but
Okay.
usually what he's saying is each one stands on its own. Here, the way I see it, it seems that, well, the first one's also very difficult. The first one is change the gears, to change the gears, so that's not easy either. It's simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
So the first one is change the gears. The second one is that's talking about a new chiddush that is
There's only
interdependent.
one and not the.
That's a Torah Nedorm. That's also difficult. That's a Torah Nedorm is difficult in the word. So very easy to say it's a Torah Nedorm is a difficult shot.
Right.
And the one makes us for it. It's interdependent, which is a chiddush. And the third shot is that we're talking about that it's onus and he doesn't have to keep it. And the question is, do you have to have a Torah Nedorm even?
Is it more like in English, goggles?
What is shkogos? Shkogos means that he said, I'm going to be usher if I go to a certain place. And when he went to a certain place, he didn't realize he didn't realize that he's activating the nether. But here he's just saying, I can't keep it. I have the nether, everything's fine. I made a nether and I can't do it. I can't. I made, I'm not going to eat watermelon. I can't go out. I can't. Everyone's eating watermelon, ice cream. I can't. I thought I'd be able to. That's a regular case that he needs a Torah syndrome. I don't know.
And Shmuel would say,
I wouldn't.
ice cream is one thing, but the other things are okay. So you're a Nazir, right?
No. Yeah.
You have the wrong.
Yeah. You're bringing in the second teres or the third teres. The second teres was for Nazirus, you have to be mad to everything. And if Shimon, that was different there. That was nothing to do with Shimon. Okay.
Oh, there's nothing to do with Shmuel.
Next Mishnah, the rest of the day should be, I think, pretty easy. To the bottom of the page. Hareini Nazir, Valai Lagalech Nazir. So we're going to find that there was we call it like people would sponsor a Nazir. That besides being a Nazir, whatever difficulty that has, but it costs money because you have to bring kabbanas at the end. There are 3 kabbanas you bring at the end of the Naziros. So some people used to sponsor a Nazir. They said, I'm going to pay for the Nazir's korban. That's called the Megalech Nazir. Megalech Nazir means I'm going to pay for the kabbanas that the Nazir needs when he does a haircut at the end of the
Nazir means I'm going to pay.
I'm going to pay for the kabbanas that he needs when he's going to do the giluach process, when he's going to do the process at the end of becoming a Nazir.
I see.
So people would do that. They would donate the kabbanas. The story with Shimon and Shetach and Yana Yemelach, they were Menazim. They needed people to pay for the kabbanas. They were Nazirim that it cost a lot of money. They might be tzaddikim and they were makabel Naziris, but then they needed money for their kabbanas. So people used to donate for them. So here, this person, he said like this. He said, Iranian Nazir, Nazir. I'm a Nazir. He's making himself a Nazir. And also, he accepted upon himself to sponsor a Nazir. He's going to pay for a Nazir's korban. And then there was somebody else that was listening, and he said, me too. He said, Shama Chavero, his friend heard him, and he said, Vani, me too. And I'm also going to pay for a Nazir's korbanos, which sounds like he accepted upon himself Nazirus, and also that he's going to sponsor a Nazir's korbanos. So fine. So they both of them are Nazir, and both of them have to sponsor somebody's korban.
But Vani seems like he's making himself a Nazir.
Yes, it's true. He is.
Vani, the
So both of them are Nazirim, and both of them have to pay for somebody's korbanos. So the Mishnah says they could do not a trick, but if they're smart, they might pick him. They could pay for each other's korbanos. Each one is a Nazir and has to pay for somebody's korban, so they can do it for each other, and each one will end up becoming a Nazir and paying for one's korban. He doesn't have to. If he's not going to do each other, each one's going to have to bring his own korbanos. No one's sponsoring him, and he's going to have to sponsor somebody else. But if they wanted, they could sponsor each other. They might pick him. If not, of course, if they want to do it, they can do what they want. But if they wanted, they could save on it by Yom if they're not so smart, so they're going to be Megalech somebody else, Megalech and Nazir Machem, and they're going to have to pay for their own. Okay, it sounds like a simple thing. All the Gemara is going to do today is talk about this word when he says Vani. The first one accepted upon himself Nazirus and also to sponsor a Nazir. And then somebody else said Vani. Let's say he wouldn't have said, That's what it said Vani. Would that have included everything that the first person said? The first person accepted upon himself two things. I'm a Nazir, I'm going to sponsor a Nazir. And almost said me too. What does me too mean?
Maybe the last thing only.
Maybe
You don't
the
know.
first thing, maybe the whole thing.
Yeah,
What do you
Right.
think?
and he also, yeah, you think both.
I don't know.
You think both. Only one.
Certainly the fact that he said both, the fact that he said
Galech
Nazir sounds like for sure he's taking on both.
Right, but you could even say stronger. In this case, for sure he did. Well, what if you only would have said Vani? Let's say, I'll just put this in parentheses. Let's say he wouldn't have said this. He just would have said Vani.
Mhm.
Let's say this would have said Vani. What would you have said? Does he?
Is
Does
it
he-
on both? Yeah,
is
it's
it
a
on-
question. I don't know.
So I'm going to bring a proof that the mission itself, the fact that mission does say the parentheses. If Vani would mean everything, so leave out the parentheses. Just say, Vani. And that means,
If
if it
fact
means
that it taught
everything.
that he said both, maybe
Yeah.
then if he didn't say both, it doesn't mean everything.
Right.
Uh,
And also the Gemara is going to ask, so which one, that doesn't mean all, it only means half. Which half, the first half or the second half?
Well, the fact that he said it right after the second half, it's closest to the second half, so you might think that.
But now prove that it's going on the first half.
Because at the very beginning, didn't we have that when somebody said another Nazir and it said Bani, he meant Nazir.
This Mishnah, right? This Mishnah right here that says, but in order, the Mishnah in order to give a case where the second one accepted upon himself Naziris and also to sponsor a Nazir.
No, when we had
The-
Kinuim and things, I thought at the very beginning.
But let's go here. The same Raya brought a second ago that the Vani is not enough to go on both. It also shows that Vani only goes on the first half that he said, because he said Vani, and still you have to say V'lai Galech Nazir. That means that the Vani would have only included that I'm a Nazir.
Oh,
I'm a Nazir and I'm going to sponsor a Nazir. Me too. So me too alone would have meant that I'm a Nazir. But it wouldn't have meant that I'm going to sponsor a Nazir. If it would have meant I'm going to sponsor a Nazir, then it should have said Vani and I'm also a Nazir. Because Vani would have meant only the second half.
Bani and I'm also. a
So
Nazir.
this
I
Mishnah
see.
shows everything. This Mishnah shows that the word Vani would have meant the first half that the first person said. If one person, Ruvain said, I'm a Nazir and I sponsor a Nazir, and the other person said, me too,
Wow.
it just means I'm a Nazir.
Okay.
And it doesn't mean that I sponsor a Nazir. That's the whole Gemara, more or less.
Okay.
Iboiluhu. Shamachaver Ramavani Mahu. If the friend would have heard and said just Vani, he only would have said Vani. He didn't say anything else. What does that mean? Vani Akula Dibura Mashma, or Dilma, Apalga de Dibura Mashma. Does Vani mean he's going on the whole sentence, whatever the first declaration was, I'm also declaring the same thing? Or does it only mean to accept half of what the first person said? And Intim Saloma Apalga de Dibura Mashma, on the side that you're going to prove that it means half, which half? Aresha or Sefer? Does it mean to accept upon himself the first thing that he said or the second thing that he said? So the Rai is from our Mishnah, Tashma, Vani, Galech Nazir. That's what it says in our Mishnah. I am like you, and I also accept to sponsor a Nazir. In my pick, this you don't need. This part you can take out. In my picture, that's not necessary for our proof. That's the Mishnah, but it's not the point. Since the Mishnah, when it wants to say a case that the second one had both things also, to be a Nazir and to sponsor a Nazir, it had to say two terms, Vani and Ve'alai. That means Vani wouldn't have said everything. Shlamina, Vani, Apalga de Dibura. You see that the word Vani would have only meant half, it wouldn't have meant the whole thing. It would have only meant that he's a Nazir,
Right.
it wouldn't have meant that he is going to sponsor a Nazir. But the Gemara says, okay, but you told me that it's not the whole thing, but to which half? Can you tell me which half? Amri in, Apalga de Dibura Mashma. You're right, you did prove that it's going only in half and not the whole. But me, our ratio or Sefer. Could you prove from the Mishnah, is it going on the ratio of the Sefer? And then my answer is yes, me no, from the same place. From the same place that I just proved to you that it's going on half and not on whole, I can prove to you which half. Since when we had to fill in his words, whatever he's missing, we filled in the Sefer. That means, and I'm going to sponsor a Nazir. That means that the Bani would have only included the ratio that he said I'm a Nazir. The last thing was finished. We would have arrived from our Mishnah. One person said, I'm a Nazir and I'm going to sponsor a Nazir. And somebody else said, me too. That just means he's a Nazir. The Gemara is going to challenge this. Who says? Who says that's the way it is? And he was going to say maybe it's lav dafka. The old memelacha avani akula dibura. I can tell you that maybe Vani would have meant everything. And the Mishnah could have said, the second one said Vani. And the problem is, why is the Mishnah have to say Valai? My kama Valai, Baham Bilsa. It just means to say, in the thing that I just finished saying, I'm just explaining myself. He's explaining himself. Excuse me. Or the Mishnah is explaining him. A Kitzer, I think this means like a Slav Dafka. It's just explaining that the Vani includes also that he has to sponsor a Nazir. But the Vishu Balev is not just saying, who's this? Vishu is not just saying it's Sam, maybe it's Slav Dafka. He brings a support. There's a Mishnah coming up. The Tani Sefer. Further on, the Mishnah is going to say, a person accept upon himself to pay for sponsor half of a Nazir. He's going to what?
Just sponsorship.
Just a sponsorship.
Sefer here is a Mishnah we didn't see yet.
We didn't see it yet. It's going to be probably
Yeah, okay.
tomorrow. I didn't see it.
Okay. Ariel Alagalech, see Nazir.
Yeah.
He's gonna pay for half.
Half of it, yeah, right. Whatever the Nazir costs, I'm going to pay for half of it. And somebody heard, and he said, I also am going to pay for half of Nazir's korbanos.
He said he just said Bani.
No, he said it seems that he said the whole thing. That's the what happened? What's
Paused after Bani.
The second one said, I am also going to sponsor half a Nazir. Over there were no two statements. Our Mishnah were two statements. I'm a Nazir and I'm going to sponsor a Nazir. Here, the next case in the Mishnah later on is going to be, I am going to sponsor half a Nazir. There's no question. If another person says me too, there's no suffix. There's no two choices. He surely meant to sponsor half a Nazir. So why does the Mishnah have to elaborate and say these four words? It just should have said Vani. I'll prove to you that it's lav dafka, because in the next Mishnah where it talks about Nazir, it's surely lav dafka because the word Vani surely would have meant that. It could have meant anything else. How's Mika Tart and Mili over there that with their two issues that that the word Vani would have only counted for one issue and you had to say the second one? No. Elamai Kamar Alai, Milsa. He just meant to say, I'm explaining myself that Vani means that Vani that I just finished saying that makes that I should sponsor half a Nazir, but not don't be medayik anything. He's just explaining himself. So Milsa, Hachanami Ki Kamar Alai only means Milsa. Kitzer, now would have been Yeshua said maybe it's lav dafka, as you see in the next Mishnah that it's lav dafka. And I was going to answer that you don't see the lav dafka. In the next case, it's true that it's lav dafka. It was only because Agav that our Mishnah had to say it. That makes by the next Mishnah would say it, even though it's not necessary. But if both Mishnahs are not necessary, there's no reason why you should have said it. Don't just the Mishnah is just going to say something that doesn't make sense that you don't need. It wouldn't just say Alai lahavi Alai lagalech Nazir if you didn't have to. If our Mishnah had to say it, then you can say the next Mishnah is Agav. Amalei Rav Hachiyasha. What's the comparison? Iyam b'shlama reishat tzricha and sefer lo tzricha. Tani sefer the lo tzricha mishum reishat the tzricha. If you say that our Mishnah is necessary to say, and I'm going to sponsor the Nazir. And the sefer really is not necessary because there's only one thing over there. He said, me too, it would have been enough. So, and we'd understand that the sefer, it says it, which is unnecessary, because the ratio was necessary, it says in Agav. If everything is not necessary, in both cases, it didn't have to say, I'm going to sponsor the Nazir. It's just that Bani would have been enough in both cases. Tani Reisha, the Tzricha, but Tani Sefer, the Tzricha. It would say two things that wouldn't make sense. So therefore, it must be that you do have to say Alai legalech Nazir, because the word Vani would have only been on the first half that he said, and that's how the Gemara comes out. L'chora at this point, I don't know what goes further. That's all for today. And the Gemara didn't really touch on the Mishnah. The Mishnah it just was partial to the Mishnah, but the diak of the Mishnah. The Mishnah when it talks about me too I'm going to be a Nazir and I sponsor a Nazir. So in order to get the case, the Mishnah used the case of Bani v'alai l'galech Nazir, and from the fact that it had to say v'alai l'galech Nazir, the Gemara is medayek that the word Bani would have only meant I'm a Nazir. It wouldn't have meant I'm going to sponsor a Nazir. Yashikovash.
Thank you.
Much Shabbos. We at 7 o'clock. One more week.
7 o'clock.
Okay, one more week.
Oh, I may not make it anyway.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, that's lovely.
Whenever you want.
Okay.
Have a good Shabbos, everybody.
You had a Shabbos off?